The cross is laid on every Christian. The first Christ suffering which every man must experience is the call to abandon the attachments of this world. It is that dying of the old man which is a result of his encounter with Christ. As we embark upon discipleship, we surrender ourselves to Christ in union with his death. We give our lives to death. Thus it begins. The cross is not the terrible end to an otherwise God-fearing and happy life, but it meets us at the beginning of our communion with Christ. When Christ calls a man, he bids him come and die. Let's see if I can get this to play.
And also how butterflies can inspire the next generation to protect it. But if you still have doubts about whether butterflies can make our countryside a better place, then you need look no further than the humble caterpillar. Because if there's one thing we learn from them, it's that change is possible. This is a brimstone. It emerged from an egg a few weeks ago, but now it's ready for a change. First, it spins a silken pad, a place to anchor hooks on the rear of its body. In a move to rival a contortionist, it passes strands of silk behind itself, creating a girdle to support it through the change to come. With anchor and line secure, the transformation can take place. Caterpillars are little more than stomachs on legs. Yet that body has served its purpose and can be discarded in favour of another. The caterpillar's head is about to split wide open. And when it does, something very different will emerge. A chrysalis. The caterpillar was an eating machine, an identity rolled up like a sock and discarded. This body is for something different, an agent of near miraculous change, and one responsible for making butterflies powerful symbols of hope and transformation. This is a sign that something beautiful is surely on its way. The chrysalis is one of the most enduring symbols in the natural world.
I now would like to invite a fellow follower of Christ to share her story of transformation. A story that when she shared it with me, sounded like her head also split open. If the chrysalis is a sign that something beautiful is on its way, then let me show you another sign that back in 2013 showed something even more beautiful was on its way. Check this out. Please welcome Soraya. I may have stolen your joke, Andre, but I made it good. Come on up, Soraya.
Thank you very much.
That's all right. I have way too much time on my hands, obviously.
Oh, really? Do I have to wear this one? Sure. I love it. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Soraya. It's me. And a long time ago, my husband received a letter with an offer to move to Australia. Good job, good opportunity. And immediately I say to him, no. I was against it. I say, no, no way. I don't want to go. I'm comfortable here in Brazil. And in fact, we had a very good life, reasonable, comfortable life in Brazil. So I was a lawyer, teacher, so I had my life, my family, parents, kids. So why do I have to move to Australia? No way. I say to him, no, 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 forget it. But suddenly, some friend of us from our church, another church as well, started talking to us and say, oh, I had a dream with you. In my dream, you guys are living in the faraway land. I say, what? And 1, 2 people would say, okay, that's fine. I think God wanna do something in our lives. And after a very good conversation with my father, I decide, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to Australia. When we moved, we went straight away to Newman. We went straight away to Newman. So Newman is a small town in the middle of the desert, Pilbara Desert. Look at me. And in the first week, he started his new job, very excited. My daughter started her school. And I found myself alone at home with no English, no one to talk to me. And I said, what I've done with my life, what I did with my life. I don't believe that. But that's okay. When Eddie come home, I will say to him, let's go home. That's fine, that's good. We had a good experience. Let's move on, let's go home. And for 2 weeks, I cried a lot. I drove Eddie crazy that time, and he said to me, Soraya, look at me. I think we need to find a job to you. I said, oh, okay. I thought he was joking, but he wasn't. He took me to the supermarket, Woolworths supermarket, and he talked to manager. The manager said, okay, she found a job. And I did my inductions without understanding any word in English. I just say, yes, 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 yes. Okay, do I have to sign? Do I have to sign it? Okay, I will do that. Okay. And I start to work as a cashier. As a cashier at Woolworths without any English. And I tried to memorize. I was talking to Andrea. I was trying to memorize every item inside the supermarket, blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine. So I say, okay, I can do that. Brief, Soraya, you can do that. But it was hard. And one day I was having a very tough day. A customer started blaming because I made a mistake. And I was upset, and my manager said to me, Soraya, close your checkout. Go outside to collect the trolleys outside. And I went. 40 degrees heat outside. When I realized, lot of trolleys around me. And I said, what? And I was so angry and upset. And I sat on the ground, I looked at the sky. Are you happy with me now? For that reason you brought me here to this place? I did something wrong to you, God. Why? I'm here. I had my life in Brazil. I was happy. Why you did it with me? Start screaming. And I cried. I cried a lot. I didn't realize, but at that point, God had just started to work in my life. He started to work in my life. He started to take it out of me, my ego, my prejudice, everything that displeased him. He started at that point to say to me, "You are my daughter. Let me treat you." So we spent how many? 2 years, almost 2 years. We will spend almost 2 years, 2 years in Yuma. Exactly the time to God broke me. He broke me in little tiny pieces, like the vase there. Little tiny pieces. And he rebuilt me again. 2 years walking side by side with him under the unforgettable sunsets. In the desert we have a beautiful sunset. Walking, talk to him, sharing with him my anger, my emotions. When we left Newman, for sure, I was not the same woman. Definitely not. And he's still doing that with me. Break me, rebuild me again, break me, rebuild me again, as he does with all of us, because he loves us. So I found my purpose in him. So he transformed my life. And I have to say thank you, God. Every day I say to him, thank you. Thank you for the new woman that I am now. That's it. Just you. Thank you for that.
And Jesus said unto them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Matthew 4:19. On reflection of this passage, the English preacher Charles Spurgeon said, "When Christ calls us by his grace, we ought not only to remember what we are, but we ought also to think of what he can make us. It is follow me, and I will make you." We should repent of what we have been, but rejoice in what we may be. It is not follow me because of what you are already. It is not follow me because you make something of yourselves, but follow me because of what I will make you. Verily, I might say of each one of us, as soon as we are converted, it does not yet appear what we shall be. It does not seem a likely thing that lowly fishermen would develop into apostles, that men so hardy with net would be quite as much at home in preaching sermons and instructing converts. One would have said, "How can these things be? You cannot make founders of churches out of peasants of Galilee." That is exactly what Christ did. And when we are brought low in the sight of God by a sense of our own unworthiness, we may feel encouraged to follow Jesus because of what he can make us. What said the woman of a sorrowful spirit when she lifted up her song? And this is Samuel's mum, Hannah. "He raises up the poor out of the dust and lifts up the beggar from the dunghill to set him among princes." We cannot tell what God may make of us in the new creation, since it would have been quite impossible to have foretold what he made of chaos in the old creation. Who could have imagined all the beautiful things that came forth from darkness and disorder by that one fiat, "Let there be light"? And who can tell what lovely displays of everything that is divinely fair I lay yet appear in a man's formerly dark life, when God's grace has said to him, "Let there be light"? O you who see in yourselves at present nothing that is desirable, come, you, and follow Christ for the sake of what he can make out of you. Do you not hear his sweet voice calling to you and saying, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men"? It was a hot March day in Perth. A man in his late 70s and a 40-something lady walked into a cafe. The man's gait was unsteady, so the lady had her arm hooked in his. She pulled a chair out for him, and they both laughed as she struggled to scoot the chair and the man under the table. He leaned towards the lady and spoke in a deep, hushed voice. He paused after each word to ensure his message was heard, understood, and remembered. Don't let anyone ever tell you that girls can't preach. He then proceeded to ask her about the church, and she told him about the man who sent her a message listing all the scriptural reasons he had decided that she, a woman, couldn't preach, because she was a woman, and how now that he knew that she was preaching, he would no longer be attending the church. The old man listened and just looked at her. He was silent, but his eyes were speaking 100 thoughts. She asked him what he was thinking, and he said about the people that would give her a hard time. She was silent, and he continued to just look at her as if wishing things would be different and he could not save her, but knowing that that could not be and he could not. His eyes always felt like they could read the secrets of my soul, and shyly I looked down. When we discuss the disciples of Jesus, we often consider the men who followed Jesus. But today I'd like to highlight some of the women of the Gospels who followed and considered disciples of Jesus. But why? I was asked this week when I told someone the topic of my sermon. Well, because we can learn from the male and female followers of Jesus. And sometimes it's forgotten that women were also faithful followers. Scott McKnight points out, when a male-based culture is reformed into a male and female-based culture, it presents a truer picture of the character of God, who created all people as his image bearers. And why look at what others in the Bible did? Once again, I'll quote McKnight. How much time do we spend talking about how we do the disciplines of the faith we talk so much about? How many times have our people left the church after hearing an inspiring sermon and realised they have no idea what to do with what they've just heard? Paul reminds the Philippians to do whatever they have seen him do. I used to think this was an arrogant boast on behalf of Paul, but when I became a father, I understood his statement. I can't remember the number of times I would say to one of my boys, "Do it like this, watch me." They learn to wash their hands, brush their teeth, tie their shoes, comb their hair, read their Bibles, love their wives, and yes, become fathers to their own children by watching me. I had to show them how to do the things I wanted them to do and how each desired action should be done. And this is why we should look at examples today. Let's see how the faithful did it in practical examples. So what made these women followers? McKnight defines it this way. To follow Jesus means to take up his dream and work for it. And that is what each of the women we will discuss today did. Today we are looking at some of the women who followed Jesus in the Gospel of John. They provide a model for discipleship through their words and actions. Perhaps you will see yourself today in these stories. Maybe even see times when you did or said things just like these women. Things that make you say, "Oh, I can do that," or "I did that," and be encouraged to faithfully continue to follow. In the Gospel of John, the first recorded foot washing is by foot washing? A woman. 6 days, we read it in John 12, 1-7, if you're reading along. 6 days before the Passover celebration began, Jesus arrived in Bethany, the home of Lazarus, the man he had raised from the dead. A dinner was prepared in Jesus' honour. Martha served and Lazarus was among those who ate with him. Then Mary took a 12-ounce jar of expensive perfume made from essence of nard, and she anointed Jesus' feet with it, wiping his feet with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance. But Judas Iscariot, the disciple who would soon betray him, said, "That perfume was worth a year's wages. It should have been sold and the money given to the poor." Not that he cared for the poor, he was a thief. And since he was in charge of the disciples' money, he often stole some for himself. Jesus replied, "Leave her alone. She did this in preparation for my burial. You will always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me. Mary anoints Jesus' feet with perfume. In today's terms, that would be about $80,000 worth of precious perfume. And she wipes his feet with her hair. Have you ever felt that God wanted you to do something or say something and you didn't quite know why? You might have a slight inclination of the reason, a vague idea, but you're not really sure. Like you know in part, but not fully. I wonder if that's what was going on for Mary. We already know she was inclined to listen to God, for we previously read in John that she sat at Jesus' feet and listened as a student would listen to her teacher, her rabbi. We already know she was willing to risk being criticized for going against what was culturally and socially acceptable by doing what only men should do and behaving as if she was a female student, studying to be a female teacher. And we know, yes, she was criticized by her sister for it, but we also know she was defended by Jesus for her choice. I wonder if that influenced her to do an even more culturally and socially risque act and take down her hair to dry his feet. Did she feel so safe that at his feet again, that she could risk rejection and criticism by the others because she was safe in his love? Or was she just caught up in her love for Jesus that she wasn't even thinking of that cost? The financial cost she would have been well aware of, but chose to go ahead with. For her, the extravagance of the cost could not compare to all she knew she owed him. It was small compared to how her heart loved him. So from what we have previously learned of her, I think it is safe to say that she is sensitive to God and what he is saying, what he is currently doing, and how she should respond, even if she does not fully understand. And in doing so, she prepared Jesus' body for burial, and she ended up doing what her Lord does. She took the faithful role of a servant and washed feet. Have you ever done an extravagant act of love for God or for others? Have you ever done or said something that you felt God wanted you to do or say without quite knowing why? Have you ever served someone in such a humble way that you may have put your pride on the line? Can you follow like Mary did? Have you ever been like Mary? Now, I don't know why they've all got halos, but just bear with it. The next group of women are going to learn about. I'll start again. The next group of women we are going to learn about fulfilled the role by just showing up. We find it in John 19:25-27. Standing near the cross were Jesus' mother and his mother's sister Mary and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother standing there beside the disciple he loved, he said to her, "Dear woman, here is your son." And he said to this disciple, "Here is your mother." And from then on, this disciple took her into his home. The book Women Who Do, Female Disciples in the Bible by Holly Carey has a beautiful description of discipleship, which I'll read now. Although these women do not seem to be engaged in much activity in the scene, their doing is simply to be present at the cross. Their position is nevertheless helpful for our understanding of female discipleship in the gospel. First, they are with Jesus at the crucial juncture of the narrative, the moment in which all his actions and teachings culminate. His hour has finally come, and they are there to witness it. Along with the anonymous beloved disciple, they are the only disciples mentioned as being present at the foot of the cross. The other male disciples have either dropped from the narrative since his arrest or actively denied Jesus. Moreover, the language of standing by the cross directly contrasts with the actions of some disciples who left early in Jesus' ministry, those who go away from him because they do not believe his teaching. Thus, these women represent Jesus' remaining support. They are the last familiar faces he will see before he breathes his last. They are committed to remaining with him until the end. Second, John focuses on the newly formed kinship between the beloved disciple and the mother of Jesus, a relationship Jesus arranged as one of his last acts before death. The beloved disciple is one of the members of Jesus' inner circle, and so Jesus' mother remains in this group as his new mother. The women who are with them would likely be considered part of the family as well. We realize that the mother of Jesus, as part of the household of the beloved disciple, will continue to be involved in the new community of believers. Have you ever done something for someone else who was suffering by just being present, by just being there, even if you can offer no words of comfort? Have you ever been a familiar face when someone had been abandoned and rejected, and if it were not for you, they would have been all alone? Have you ever been there for someone who was dying and bravely stayed for them, even though it was breaking your heart so badly and you wanted to run away? Have you ever been a faithful disciple of Jesus just because you stayed? And now to our final story today. This passage focuses on another of Jesus' female disciples, another of the Marys, Mary Magdalene. We begin at John 20:1 to 18. Early on Sunday morning, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and found that the stone had been rolled away from the entrance. She ran and found Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved. She said, "They have taken the Lord's body out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him." Peter and the other disciple started out for the tomb. They were both running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He stooped and looked in and saw the linen wrappings lying there, but he didn't go in. Then Simon Peter arrived and went inside. He also noticed the linen wrappings lying there, while the cloth that had covered Jesus' head was folded up and lying apart from the other wrappings. Then the disciple who had reached the tomb first also went in, and he saw and believed. For until then they still hadn't understood the scriptures that said Jesus must rise from the dead. Then they went home. Mary was standing outside the tomb crying, and as she wept, she stooped and looked in. She saw two white-robed angels, one sitting at the head and the other at the foot of the place where the body of Jesus had been lying. "Dear woman, why are you crying?" the angels asked her. "Because they have taken away my Lord," she replied, "and I don't know where they have put him." She turned to leave and saw someone standing there. It was Jesus, but she didn't recognize him. "Dear woman, why are you crying?" Jesus asked her. "Who are you looking for?" She thought he was the gardener. "Sir," she said, "if you have taken him, tell me where you have put him, and I'll go get him." "Mary," Jesus said. She turned and cried out, "Rabboni," which is Hebrew for teacher. "Don't cling to me," Jesus said, "for I haven't yet ascended to the Father. But go find my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene found the disciples and told them, "I have seen the Lord." Then she gave them his message. Once again, I'm going to read Holly Carey's summation of this passage. Mary Magdalene's presence at the tomb continues a narrative thread we have seen throughout the Gospel and emphasized in the previous crucifixion scene. Jesus' female followers desire to remain near him. We are not told why Mary Magdalene goes to the tomb in the wee hours of the morning. It seems that she is simply following him once again. Given the effort she makes to be near Jesus, dead or alive, her distress at seeing the tomb open is palpable. Her assumption that his body has been stolen causes such panic that she runs and tells Peter and the beloved disciple what she thinks has happened. That Mary Magdalene knows exactly where to find these two leaders of Jesus' inner circle of male disciples suggests that she is part of the larger group of disciples who have remained together after Jesus' death. Although she knows where they are hiding, she is separate from them because she risks her own safety to go and see Jesus' body alone. Later, when Jesus first approaches her, he asks her whom she is seeking. Perhaps her effort to be near him and her initiative in telling the others that Jesus is missing is why she is later rewarded with being the first to see him face to face. In the very place where Jesus' body has disappeared and second, the risen Jesus himself, the narrative emphasizes that the male disciples, who were the closest of all of Jesus' companions, just missed the revelation of God's power in the person of the resurrected Christ. Just as at the cross, although Mary Magdalene can do nothing but staying becomes the action that leads to something extraordinary. In the process, she becomes the first gospel witness to the resurrection. Mary Magdalene's conversation with Jesus also indicates her commitment to following him, despite her initial despair in thinking that he is dead and that his body has been stolen. Before Jesus reveals his true identity to her, while she still thinks he is the gardener, she professes her willingness to reclaim Jesus' body from wherever he might have taken him. Unlike the male disciples who are hiding to protect their own lives, Mary Magdalene is not willing to accept that Jesus' body has been stolen and proposes to do something about it. Perhaps her determination to retrieve the body is the reason that Jesus chooses to reveal himself to her, for it is in that moment that he does so. It is quite possible that her display of faithfulness and courage compels him to allow her fully to see to whom she is actually talking. And yet, much like the other women we have studied in this gospel, she still has more to learn. Understanding is gained gradually. She responds to this revelation by calling him Rabboni, a title appropriate for him during his earthly ministry and indicating her recognition of him as the man she has followed. Mary Magdalene's dedication to Jesus' welfare, even in death, allows her to be the first to witness the resurrected Jesus and the first to witness to the reality of the resurrection. Her steadfastness and love for Jesus make her the best candidate for sharing the good news that he has risen from the dead. Mary Magdalene's twofold proclamation accurately reflects the illumination she has received from her encounter with the resurrected Jesus. She has seen her Lord, and he will soon ascend to the Father. In terms of narrative impact, she is the first bearer of the message for which the audience has been waiting, and thus becomes a model for faithful discipleship for the community. A faithful disciple should testify to the good news of Jesus' death and resurrection. Have you ever been like Mary Magdalene? Have you ever desired to be near Jesus, to linger in his presence, perhaps while it is still dark and others are sleeping? Have you ever just stayed in his presence in prayer, in worship, in Bible reading, and the staying becomes the action that leads to something extraordinary? Have you witnessed the reality of the resurrection in your life? That makes you the best candidate for sharing the good news of Jesus' death and resurrection. I hope today's examples have opened your eyes, whether you are a man or woman, of the ways you have already been a faithful follower and didn't even realize it. And now that you know, you will continue on with it and grow even more in it. And perhaps now that you know you were being faithful disciples at those times, you realize why that painful action was risky or costly and sacrificial or even painful. And I pray that the ways you may not have realized you could follow, that were right in front of you all along, will become avenues for faithfulness. Let us be faithful followers in all we say and do. And now I've asked Chris if he can lead us into communion.